Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast conversation. I am sitting here today with Tammy Chapman and Scott Chapman. And this weekend, we started a brand new series called Breakthrough. And this series, I'm actually super excited about it.
I am too.
It's 4 weeks walking through the life of Samuel, who you said is a pretty good guy.
I will tell you, I always tell people that Samuel is the most towering figure in the Bible that they probably don't know.
Yeah.
He is one of my favorite people. I think if as a young man, if you are out there and you are thinking, I want to grow up to be like somebody, and it should be Jesus, but if it's not Jesus, I'm thinking it should be Samuel. Samuel is an unbelievably amazing guy, walks with God his entire life, is able to be literally fearless in the face of great opposition and does not back off for an inch of what he is. Mm-hmm. He's a great portrait of what a godly man looks like. Mm-hmm. And he has to deal with a lot of stuff not of his own making that he has to clean up. And he can be very tough, but he can also, I think, be very understanding in that as well. It's kind of a fun thing.
I think what I love too is we have the story of Samuel from his birth all the way to his death. Most people in the Bible, we just have these little snippets in their life, but we literally have him from start to finish. And
that's so true. Yeah. I didn't think, who else do we get that? Moses.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And Samuel? I don't know. Is that it? Is that what we got?
It might be.
That's such a good point.
I'm thinking there's not a whole lot.
There's not a whole lot.
Isaac.
Yep.
But yeah, there's not. That's a really. I never thought about that.
Me
That's
either.
actually a really good point.
What a fun nugget.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's true.
Put that in your pocket. But this week we started out with the story of Samuel's birth.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we walked through his mom's experience, essentially.
Yeah.
And she goes through this period of needing to trust God. And Scott, you talked about trusting God versus trusting Amazon.
Yeah.
In the message. That was fun, which leads to the question of, how many Amazon packages are at your house right now? Do we know?
I think there are 3. There might be a 4th. I'm not sure if it's coming today, but
it was amazing when they started giving you updates on where your package is. It's 10 stops away.
Yeah.
My kids, if they're waiting for something that we've ordered on Amazon, they want to watch and see is it 9 stops away now? Because at a certain point you can kind of see where the truck is. It's like watching Santa on the NORAD tracker.
There you go. That's right. Exactly.
On Amazon. But yeah, you walked us through, Scott, the story of Samuel's birth, and it actually starts out in a really hard place.
It does. I as excited as I am about Samuel, I'm equally excited about Hannah. Mm-hmm. I think she's a great woman of God. When I look at her, she has a heart for God. She trusts God, but she's in a hard place, and so she's in a family with 2 wives, which in the Bible usually does not work out really well.
Right, or ever.
Ever. Maybe ever.
I would second that.
Yeah. And so we would say, let's not emulate that part of the story.
Right.
But as often seems to happen in the Bible, when there are multiple wives, there's conflict. Mm-hmm. And in this case, she is shamed and mocked and ridiculed because she has not been able to have any kids.
Yeah.
Which is a huge deal in any culture, but a particularly large deal in that culture. And so she is really into tears and is in a really hard space. And that's where we pick up her story. Mm-hmm. And we see that Samuel is the result of a pretty honest and raw moment between her and God.
Yeah.
Which I think I love that about Hannah too. Mm-hmm. She's kind of at the end of it. She's not pretending. She's not trying to make this pretty. Mm-hmm. It's just what it is.
Yeah, you get the real raw emotion.
Yep.
That comes in a season of true desperation and longing and hardship. I feel like that you really read that in her story.
Have you ever had a moment like that, Ellie, where it's been raw or real?
For sure. I think that we have been very blessed in our life we didn't ever walk through a season of infertility. That was something we didn't experience personally. I know that's different for your guys' story.
Yeah.
But, recently our daughter has gone through a major medical diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I would say that this has been, it's been a season of that this past year for us.
Like, how has that shaped how you've interacted with God when you think back at that? Because that's hard. Like, you guys have been walking through a really hard season in that.
Yeah, I think there comes to a place where once God wants it all. Like, he wants all the emotion, he wants all of the pieces, and that you can actually give that to him. There have been, I think, very Hannah-like moments of raw exchanges of I've had moments of, God, I'm so mad. Like, I am angry, I am mad, I am frustrated, I don't understand this, it doesn't make sense. I want a certain outcome, right? I want full healing for my child.
Right.
And at the same time knowing, like, there's no human possibility of that. There's helps, but there's no human possibility of healing. And so knowing that power fully lies in his hands and then not seeing it has been a season of tension for me and my relationship with God, but still so real. Like I would still say I'm in a good place with God, but only because I've been able to give him all of those emotions.
Yeah.
And I feel like I haven't had to hold anything back from him.
What does perspective look like for you in that? How do you maintain your perspective of your situation, the world? Because I find that hard. Like, in a moment when I want something really bad and I'm hurting or I'm angry, I find perspective is usually the first casualty of that for me, and I lose my perspective. How do you do that?
I mean, I think that there is a reality of it's an everyday choice, right? To choose to look at it through a different lens, and something that I've been walking my daughter through, just so no one thinks that she has diabetes. She's been diagnosed with that type 1, and so it's hard for her, and it's been hard for us. But we've chosen to look at what are the blessings in this. What are the things in this season that we can be grateful for? So there was a season where she was doing multiple shots a day of insulin. And so we chose 1 shot a day to thank God for insulin.
Yep.
We didn't have to be, grateful at every single shot.
Yep.
But 1 shot a day, we're going to be grateful that insulin exists, because without insulin, she doesn't exist.
Right.
And so for us, it's been walking through, hey, God, where can we see your goodness right now?
Right.
And letting that be the lens that we look through, to look at the entirety of it, and letting that shape how we hold it as well. But it's not easy. Like, when it comes out of my mouth, those words sound easy.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, just look at it through the lens of gratitude. That's not an easy thing to do when you're in a season of desperation and longing. And so I would just encourage people in that too. Like, it's not always easy. But I know you guys have walked through, probably multiple seasons also of desperation, but that you had a resonating point with Hannah in the story, Tammy, of walking through a season of infertility. What was that like?
Yeah. I think as long as I could remember, always wanted to be a mom. Never in a million years thought infertility would be part of my story. And so at first, when we weren't getting pregnant, I didn't think much of it. And Scott actually didn't share this. We actually lost a child through miscarriage, about 1.5 years, 2 years in to try and to have kids. But before that, we hadn't undergone any testing or anything. But after we had the miscarriage, after a while, we were just like, we should probably see a doctor. There might be something more here.
Yeah.
And so the total amount of time was 7 years, with a miscarriage kind of in there too. But I think the miscarriage was its own thing. I wasn't struggling with infertility before that because I didn't realize I had an infertility problem.
Okay.
It was after, the doctor was like, well, actually, Scott said, we didn't really have anything wrong. I mean, I'm a little technical, maybe more technical about things than him. We didn't have anything major wrong. We had some little things that were wrong.
There was nothing definitive that would create the diagnosis.
And so they didn't see any reason why we couldn't get pregnant.
Okay.
I did eventually end up with endometriosis and had a lot of issues later. But during those years of, active infertility, it didn't have that official diagnosis.
I see what you mean there.
Yeah. But I think for women, one of the hardest things about infertility is you have an opportunity to get pregnant every single month.
Yeah.
And so, you get your hopes up and you are praying and thinking about it. And then, if it doesn't happen, And so it's this cycle of just working yourself up to just like be ready, one way or the other, and hoping that it's going to, happen this month. And then if it doesn't, just working through all the emotions again. And so that's a really hard part of it, just that up and down and how to manage that.
Yeah.
And plus your hormones,
add
add
a lot
to the mix.
To that. Yeah.
Don't know anything about that.
But I think there have been a couple things in my life that have taken me to not just low places, but what I would say are dark places.
Yeah.
And this was one of them. I had some dark moments. And I say dark because my thoughts were dark. My thoughts about God. My thoughts about his goodness, they were dark thoughts.
Yeah.
And I felt bad about that. I know the whole time in my head, I knew that God loved me.
Yeah.
But I could not understand why. If you want something that's so good and that actually your body is made for, why would the answer to that prayer be no?
Yeah.
And like Scott said in his sermon, like it seemed like people who didn't want kids were just easily getting pregnant. And so you kind of process that. You're like, I mean, why is there something so bad about me or wrong about me or, that is your reason for this? And I had, when I was in high school, I was sexually active, and it was a part of my past that I wasn't raised in a Christian home. And once I gave my life to Christ, also in high school, I carried a lot of shame about the fact that I was having sex. And I did eventually, repent and ended relationships so I could just have a season of not having that temptation or whatever in my life. And then, we get married, we're going along. A few years into infertility, Scott mentioned this too, when you are trying to understand why. For me, I started filling in the blank with maybe God is punishing me because I was sexually sinful. And so that was just also part of the emotional, spiritual, mental just process. Stuff I was praying about, obviously just confessing my sin all over again, repenting again, even though God had forgiven me. But again, I just thought there must be something I'm not doing, so I have to do this because I just, whatever the reason is, I just want to get it figured out. And, so it was emotionally challenging. It was spiritually challenging.
Yeah.
And physically, challenging. It's just hard.
Yeah, and I think I've walked, alongside so many friends who have experienced it at great depths, and there's the social aspect too, which Scott, you talked about in noted in your message, which is so difficult. It feels like when you're walking through that, everywhere you turn, there's a baby.
And we're that age
right?
where everyone was starting a family.
And you don't want to be bitter about that, and you don't want to have the, strong emotions about that. But how do you not in a moment where you want something so badly and feel like it's being withheld?
Yeah.
Not
You're
feel
genuinely
that way.
happy for your
Happy.
friends, but at the same time you were wishing it was you.
Yeah.
And so there's that, I don't know if jealousy is the right word or coveting. It's a grieving desire to have what someone has, like, but you are happy for them. But it is hard because it puts it front and center, in your heart, as if it wasn't there already, but it's right there.
I think one of the things too, I saw you fight really hard to also not become obsessed with it. When we want something so much, what we want can become our obsession.
Yeah.
And God gets dethroned, and bigger pictures of other people that are already in our lives become less than what it should be. And I think you did a good job of fighting that and not doing that. There was friends of ours that did not. And I remember being with them at several different points, and I remember thinking to myself, I have to be careful because I don't want this to become my life. Like, I don't want this one thing to define my Christianity, this one thing to define my life, this one. And that's hard because it was something that both of us wanted. I wanted to be a husband and a father since I was in high school, and that was something that was important to me, and I wanted to do that, and it was hard, but that was also something, and it was maybe the first time in my Christianity that I ever thought about something like that you can make something such an obsession that
So like an idol.
It kind of is. Yeah, it kind of is. I hate to say that
because
it
this
sounds
isn't
hard,
necessarily that, but anything can really take the place of God.
It can. Yeah, and I think you did a very good job of not doing that.
If I did, it was not. That is the Lord's grace, because it was,
It's so hard.
I didn't look up the stats or anything on this, but I do know that some marriages don't make it.
Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't just affect your relationship with God, but it affects your marriage, because sex becomes something different for some people.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful that wasn't the case for us.
Yeah.
But it messes with every aspect of your life, and you need people in your life that are going to support you and understand and have a grace for you, and the Lord, obviously, and each other.
Absolutely.
So.
I also think what we talked about with God, of where Hannah made the choice to not let this be a wedge between her and God. I think that's also true between a wife and a husband.
Yeah.
You can let this be a wedge between you that drives you apart and kind of bends and twists the aspects of your normal life, that it becomes something it never was. Or you come together and you get closer, which is, I think, what we made the choice to do, not just with God, but with each other, and be able to say, man, we're in this together. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And we, and God was very good in that. And I'm grateful for that too. We ended up having a son. For those of you who don't know, Tammy, you were quick to point out that not everybody knows we have children. And
one biological son and 2 adopted daughters.
And 2 adopted daughters, yeah. And so we have been blessed in that. And but yeah.
Scott, I'm curious. I think that, like, from a female perspective, like, there's
You're asking me about a female.
No, I'm not. Absolutely
curious.
not. No, I'm just kidding.
What does that say, man?
I'm just kidding. But I think in, like, the community of women, like, there's been a lot of work done so that we know how to support one another in this. But I'm wondering from, like, a male perspective, I don't think that that's been done. But, like, what would you say to other men who are walking through this right now, who are walking alongside their wives who are experiencing infertility, who are dealing with the disappointment themselves, or the tension, the sadness, the despair of it?
I would say a couple things. I think one, I think this is less true now than when I was growing up. But men were trained that no matter what happens to you, you don't complain. And you deal with it and you overcome it, and that you project confidence, and that you don't let your wife or your kids see you in disarray, and you have got it all together.
Right.
And I was trained in that as a boy, and I certainly brought that into our family. And the first thing I would say is there's no way you're going to go through certain things in life, and this is certainly one of them, that you're going to hold it all together, and you're not going to have a moment when you don't hold it all together. And I also think it's important because your wife can think you might not care, or that you're not emotionally, it's not touching you in the same way, even though it probably is. Maybe not even the same way, but in a significant way.
Right.
I also think that there's no male framework. Like, I don't know how to talk to my male friends about things like this, because it also sounds like I could be less of a man because I can't get my wife pregnant.
Yeah.
And so there's parts of that too that I think in male culture is a thing. And we don't, even to this day, like, I don't go talk about my feelings.
No, really?
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I would like to talk about his feelings.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how you feel.
Yeah. Most of, we get together and talk about what do you think about that, or how are you doing? That's kind of code for do you have feelings about this?
Right.
But I don't say, tell me about your feelings and tell me about that. And because men don't do that as much, right?
Right.
I also think that, there's, I think for men, imagine in trying to relate to your wife if you lost like 7 jobs in a row and your career was completely in the dumpster fire, and all the other men are looking at you like, why can't you get it together? What's up with you? And all the self-talk that you would have about yourself, I think that would get you in the zip code. It's not the same, but it would get you in the zip code of understanding how this feels. Because for us, providing for our family, protecting our family is core. Like, it's the core of what it means to be a husband and a father. And when you don't feel you can do that, it just feels like something is horribly broken. And you want to escape it or change it quickly. And I think that's not a bad way to at least start to enter into what it might feel like a little bit to be in that.
Absolutely. I wanted to go back to something you were talking about, Tammy. And Scott, you talked about it in your message, creative narratives, and Tammy, you talked about it, filling in the blank. But I think that's an easy headspace for no matter what your circumstance of desperation is, right? That whether it's I've lost a job and I am financially strapped and like don't know where anything is coming from next month, right? Or whether it's a situation of like this, of infertility, or like we're in like a health situation, like there's this desperation, and then you can start to create the narrative or fill in the blank of your mind of why this is happening to you. And I think that you see this too in the narrative with Hannah, right? And like, people are claiming like that it's her sin, or, family history that is bringing this on her.
Or that she's drunk.
Or that she's drunk.
Exactly.
Thanks, Eli.
Yeah.
But we can explain that it's not.
Right.
Right? That there's actually a factor of our world that comes into play, and that's the brokenness of our world.
Absolutely.
That creates these scenarios in our lives.
Absolutely.
How would you explain that to someone?
I first, even just if we could come back, one of the things I love about Hannah is actually more connected to God and secure with him than Job. Because Job's friends come along and do the exact same thing, and he has nothing in the midst of it. Hannah looks at Eli and says, no, I'm not a sinful woman.
She is strong.
She is. Yeah. She is very strong, and I love that about her. I think that is great. So she actually knows this is not the situation.
Yes.
So I love that. I think that's important in the story, because sometimes when there's silence or ambiguity, we can say, well, is there?
Right.
And there isn't in that. But yeah, I mean, but to your point, the number one question every time in the history of our church when we've ever asked our people, if you could hear a sermon on one thing, what would it be? It is, why do bad things happen to good people?
Yeah.
Why do things go wrong in the world? Every single time for 30 years, that has been the number one thing that people want to know. And I get it, because I think it's the number one thing that drives us to our knees. It's the number one fear that we have. Are we going to find ourselves alone and not seen by God in some way, and bad things happening to us that we can't change? And are we going to be trapped and not get out? Those are feelings that every human being has felt at one time or another. And the Bible explains it differently than a lot of times what people might think. And, we talked about it a little bit, but God didn't make the world that way. He created it good and without sin or hardship or conflict or brokenness. And we rebelled as people, rebelled from God, and that's when all this entered in. And people often say, well, why doesn't he fix it? And that's the whole message of Jesus, that he is fixing it. And he's going to come back and he's going to change the world and change us. Why not now? And the reason, this is a little more complex, but there's a parable in the New Testament that Jesus tells of the wheat and the tares. And they said, why don't you just pull out all the weeds in the field? And he said, because it could pull out some of the crops. And his point is that there is evil in the world. And if you just pulled out all the evil, even if you were trying to be careful, you could damage some of the good. And Jesus goes on to share that God is waiting for everybody to come to him that will, and he's going to harvest the whole field at the same time and separate out those of us who have made that decision from everything else in the world. And that, we can question it. We can say, why did God do it? But that is the plan of God, and that is what God is going to do, and that is how God is going to bring good out of the middle of it. A question that I find interesting, and I remember a bishop of Nigeria was the first person in a conversation with me that posed it. And he just said, if you lived in the middle of Nigeria, in the middle of the conflict between Christians and Muslims, he said, you would ask the questions, why does anything good ever happen?
I thought when you said that on Sunday, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that was not from me.
Yeah, okay.
And so that
Bishop
was
of Nigeria.
Bishop of Nigeria.
Let's
give him some props on that.
Yeah.
And I said, tell me what you mean. And he said, my wife has been raped 4 times. And he had 2 daughters that were brutally murdered. And his house has been burned down multiple times. And he just said, I know that my Christian witness where I live is going to cost me an awful lot. And so any day that is a good day, we rejoice and we celebrate it. Now, you can take that in a lot of different ways, but I think there's a lot of people living in the world that have a very different experience of the world even than we do. And I just look at it and I think it is truly amazing when you think about how broken things are, that good things happen.
Yeah. And it plays with this tension a little bit of we should expect good.
Right.
Right? It's not saying that we shouldn't expect it.
Right.
Or we shouldn't.
Because God is present.
Yeah, because he's good and he's present. But it becomes this reality of, I think, being able to identify the miraculous aspect of his kingdom.
Right.
It's a tension for sure.
Christianity is the only religious worldview that is telling you the world around you is wrong. Every other religious worldview is telling you to accommodate to what you see in order to have your life be better. And Christianity is the only one that is saying your life's not going to get better if you become more like the world.
Yeah.
That you actually have to be able to divorce yourself from it. And it's and it also doesn't say it's not real or it doesn't hurt. It's saying it does in both cases. And so this is a very, very different way to look at life.
Yeah. My question, I think, is Tammy, I would love to hear your perspective on this. When we find ourselves in these situations, which is often, no matter just the circumstances of our lives, how do we enter into that with God? How do we pray for that? Do we pray for the good things? In the case of when you're talking about infertility, it feels right to pray for a baby. Babies are good. Yeah. God loves babies. God loves family. When I think about different seasons that people are in, is it okay to pray for a house? Do I pray for a house? Do I pray for, how do we hold that with him when we enter into that conversation of, Lord, we just want to see, we're surrendering to your will, but also we feel like this is good. What do we do?
Yeah. I don't know that I have a perfect answer to that or anything, but I just think about how God has revealed himself to us as a good father. And good parents care about what's going on with their kids.
Yeah.
They want to know what's on their heart. That includes not just their needs, but their wants.
Mm-hmm.
And good parents know their kids. Like, they know what they, are interested in and things like that. And so I believe God, as a good dad, wants us to come to him and, yes, ask for the things we need and ask for things that we want. I do think most of us know there's a big difference in that request. And so often we're coming to him with a different posture. Like, Lord, I need a new car. I'd really like this one. know? It might just not be possible,
Yeah.
That's kind of the way you approach me as well.
But you know what's surprising, I think, is sometimes God gives you what you want, not just what you need. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But obviously some of the things that we want aren't good for us. I think we can ask, but,
Yeah.
But I kind of go there first. Just, he's a good dad, and we should be able to bring anything to him and just lay it before him. I always think just, it's, again, sometimes the words are easier than the actions, but always coming, just from that sense of, Lord, you actually do know what is best for me, and you see things in my life, in me, in the people around me, that are going to inform your decision. And so I believe God acts in our best interest. And so, I think that's helpful too when I'm praying, just to remember that about the Lord. He's loving. He's a good dad. He's got my best in mind. And I don't know, that just helps me when I pray.
I was talking to a young mom this morning, and her one son is very small, preschool. He's terrified of storms. And so I remembered that, and I asked her this morning, hey, how'd your boys do in the storm last night? Because I thought it could be a little dicey. And as we were having that conversation, her answer was, you know what? There were some tears, there were some things, but ultimately everybody's fine, everybody's off to school, everybody's good. And I thought to myself, every single person would look at that mom and say, man, you have your priorities strapped on right. You're raising your kids well. You love them. You're with them. You're present with them. But you also have bigger priorities than lightning that you know is not going to hurt them, or thunder that is not going to hurt them. And the reality is, I look at God and I think we are terrified of the thunder and the lightning, and he's present with us in the midst of it. But he also has bigger priorities. And he also can say, at the end of your life, I've got you.
Yeah.
Like you're going to live for millions of years with me.
Yes.
I have you.
Yeah.
I have not dropped you. Don't get freaked out by lightning and thunder, as bad as it scares you or as much as it hurts. I'm telling you right now, I've got you. And I think there's a beauty to that and a reality that we understand. The problem is we are actually scared of the thunder and the lightning, and we want an answer to that too.
Absolutely. And I think about people who their stories don't end like Hannah.
Yes, that's right.
They've
like every one of the apostles.
yeah, right. And we're friends. We all have those friends. We all have been those people. We all have where you are praying for something good and you're laying that before God, and you do feel like your heart's surrendered, and you do feel like, hey, God, I am open to whatever it is that you have planned. But then at some point you realize I'm not going to get the thing that I've been praying for. And I think that in certain aspects it can feel easier than others. Like I think about the season of our life when we were moving from McHenry to Lake Zurich to Pastor Palatine, and we downsized our house, which is a very first world problem. I'm declaring that on the podcast. It's a very first world problem. But I had this home that I was like, it was the home that I'd always imagined. We had enough bedrooms, enough bathrooms, a big backyard, and we were going to move. And so we were giving that up. And I was like, God, do you love me enough to give me another home that's like that one? And we ended up we have this cute little quaint little cottage now, but it's significantly smaller and very small. And it wasn't the picture of provision that I had in mind, but I'm okay with it. You know, I'm content with it. But then I think about people who are sitting in the space of praying for something like a child. And that doesn't happen. Or praying for something like cancer. And that doesn't happen. And that's so much harder to reconcile than a house.
Right.
You know? And I feel like that's the place where people come in and they're like, but what now? And like, I don't know that any of us have that answer, but I just am like, it's that tension that's in my heart for people of like in the fullness of God's kingdom, like there is healing, there is, you know, no longing for things like children, but
the answer of the gospel is, you know, we talk about the already and the not yet of the kingdom. The not yet, the kingdom we wait on, is complete resolution to every single thing we've ever prayed.
Yeah.
The already is his presence.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what we can count on. We can't count on any aspect of the not yet, though that happens.
Yeah.
But it is not a guarantee in that. But the guarantee is that I will be with you always, even to the end of the age.
Yeah.
And that God will show up in the midst of a smaller house.
Yes.
In the midst of cancer.
Yep.
In the midst of infertility. In the midst of loneliness, where you're like, why am I not married?
Yes.
Why am I not, you know, all of these are the deep longings of the heart.
Yes.
And I don't think God diminishes them or poo-poos them in any way. But he joins us in it, and it's an opportunity, the way Paul talks about later on in Philippians 4, where he said, I've learned the secret of being content in everything, whether I've had much or whether I've had little. And that secret is that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He doesn't mean I get all things through Christ who strengthens me, but I can endure or do whatever God is asking me, no matter what I have, whether much or little, because of the presence of Jesus in my life. Yeah. And that can sound harsh or less than, but I think that's real. And I think as God enters our life, he can help our heart and he can help our mind. And we can do more than endure. We can even thrive in the midst of not having everything that we would want.
Yeah, I think that something that's helped me in this, a while back, I was like, trying to reconcile, as you try to think about how you explain things to people, you can go through things, but like the idea of understanding what it means to be blessed.
Yes.
And how the Bible, the biblical definition, God's definition of blessed is very different than like our Western world definition of blessed. Like I think we think about it in this prosperity picture of like blessed is getting the things I want. But I think if you think about like the Beatitudes in Matthew 5, like blessed are those, right? Like blessed are those who mourn, right? For they will be comforted. Like blessed is actually like being known by God. And knowing exactly his presence. And so when we can reorient ourselves around that definition and understanding and live in that reality of this is what it means to be blessed, I think that those situations become so much easier. Not easier. Yeah. It's easier to know that God is with you in them. Right. It's easier to see him, to not become bitter, to not like let those roots grow up that can be so toxic. Yeah, I
think you're exactly right. There's a set of biblical words that are really important to know that they're not just synonyms of the same thing.
Yes.
and I think that's really super important. Bless is exactly what you said. You are blessed with the presence of God. It means that you are in right relationship with God. To be blessed is to have God with you in this right now. Yeah. Favor means that God helps other people like you, and that you have a reputation with them. Provision means that God provides what you need for you. Yeah. And deliverance means that God helps you overcome the evil and hardship in your life. And those are not the same. Yeah. And yet those are things that are biblical themes again and again and again that we see that we can ask for. But a lot of times what we want is prosperity and protection. Yes. And a lot of these things that sometimes come, but often don't. And I think that can be the challenge is that what we ask for isn't necessarily what God says is the main highway of what he's delivering. Yeah.
It's interesting, like as you're saying that, I'm just thinking that our worldly definitions, I think, are born out of out of fear.
Sure.
Right? Like prosperity, we want it because we don't think we're going to have enough.
Yes.
Provision is knowing that what God supplies is enough.
Yes.
Right? And it's recognizing that what he supplies is enough. And even, you said prosperity and not protection, right?
Yep.
Protection, like we want that because we think that God's like, who's going to defend us?
Right.
Right? But deliverance is knowing that God is that trust. And so what are our desires born out of fear? What are our desires born out of confidence in who is the king of our lives?
I have a massive interest in avoiding pain. One might have called it a near obsession. And I don't know that I'm alone in that. I don't
Feels
like
human.
pain. Yeah, I do not like pain. I don't want hardship, and I don't like uncertainty. And because of those things, I would like control and resources and all the things that I need, because I can play that chessboard well, that I can minimize my pain and discomfort and fear in the midst of that. And the reality is, some of that we get, but a lot of the times we just don't have enough chess pieces to play that out.
Yeah.
And we realize this is in God's territory. And that's when the chessboard changes. And we realize it's not going to be him just putting more pieces on the board for me, but that he's going to play the pieces I have differently than I would. And I think that's a different moment when you can get comfortable with that.
Yeah, and Sunday you talked about anxiety.
Yeah.
Even in that realm of like, anxiety is what happens when we imagine our future without God in the picture.
Yeah.
And you said it more eloquently than that. But I was like, that is such a good point. And not that, there's clinical anxiety and things like that, right, that are chemical imbalances in our brain. But I think that a typical anxiety is 100% produced when you don't have confidence that God is with you in it, right?
Yep.
When you're not living in that confidence that like God is with me right now, he was with me then, he's with me in the future. That's what produces anxiety in our lives, when we're able to step out of that place and into confidence, knowing, okay, he's going to be here every step of the way.
Yeah, and for me, I have a way, I guess, of thinking about that, because I can get into that mode of what if.
Yeah.
Right? That's that anxiety mode of just my mind just constantly worrying about the what ifs. But there's something about the journey to the even if. And that I can't make that happen in myself of just like, I'm going to change the way I feel. That is just a process of talking to God, working this out with God, surrendering to him, trusting him, and something happens in the process of doing that with God, that I'm able to make that shift from what if to even if, and it's his presence. That's the only way I can ever get to even if.
Yeah, and the even if is like, even if
circumstances don't
he
change,
doesn't,
don't
right?
get the thing, right? He leads me into that place where I can say, well, even if he's still with me, he still loves me, he's still good, I'm okay. The most important thing in my life is okay, and that's a journey, but it's an important one.
100%.
I love that. I
so
love
good.
how you said that. It's so much better than how I say it.
How do you say it? No, I'm just kidding.
Buck up.
Well, honestly,
Put on your boots,
and
kids.
again, I usually only say this in certain circles. You need to lose your fear of death.
Yeah.
And when you lose your fear of death, you lose your fear of almost everything else.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, God can actually lead you without fear. You start to become. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? All of a sudden, you're like, even if I die, you got me.
Yeah.
Even if my child dies, you got him. Even if and once that happens, you realize I could have a rough season and I could be in a valley for a while, but I won't always be there. And you'll be with me in the valley, and you will deliver me from this valley. Maybe today, maybe a long time from now, but you will do it. And there's a mindset shift that happens.
Yeah.
And part of what I do every morning is I place our church, my family, and myself in God's hands. And I go through an actual discipline of doing that. And in my mind, when things cause me anxiety in that moment, I list them. I reflect them to God that I'm honest. I'm feeling fear or anxiety, or and I sit in that until He takes that. And I find that He takes it when I'm willing to say, I think a better way to say it would be even if.
Yeah.
And I can sit in that, and I lose my fear of the world, and I lose my fear of evil, and I lose my fear of what can happen. And I find that I need to lose it again tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's, it's honestly a very serious thing. Like, praying in the morning is a big deal, because I find my faith at 7 o'clock is very different than my faith at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I think being able to be with God sets your day, up in that way too. But I love how you say it, Tammy. I think that is really good.
What if to even if?
Yeah.
You should write that down somewhere if it's not already written down.
My daughter wants to get a tattoo.
I love that.
She's like, Mom, matching tattoos.
That's so good. It's such a good tool.
I don't have any tattoos yet, but
yeah,
maybe
soon.
Maybe.
I know a guy. No, I think that's beautiful. I think it's important for people to remember, and us to remember, right? Like this, like you said, Scott, this is an everyday process. This isn't like, I think sometimes you can read a story or be in a story and like, okay, this is one picture of Hannah's day, but how many times did Hannah probably go before the Lord, right?
Oh.
And this is like to me, this is like the last moment of desperation.
I think that's
like,
exactly right.
She's like laid it all out, and she's like, God, I have nothing else to lay out in front of you. And so for us to remember, like, this is like walking with Him in everything is an everyday thing, and it's not always going to be pretty.
Right.
Like I think we think about morning prayer time as like this buttoned up, like I'm sitting in my chair with like, you know, and some days it looks like that, and I have a cup of coffee and it's nice. Other days I'm literally in my chair weeping, at 5 a.m. because that's just how I'm feeling in that moment.
Right.
And it doesn't always have to be pretty or buttoned up. There's no perfect way of doing this.
I think Hannah could have had bad moments. Hannah's a human being.
Yeah.
We catch Hannah in an exasperated moment, but a very good moment.
Yeah.
She probably could have had an exasperated moment that was not a good moment.
Yeah.
And we just don't know about it. It's not recorded in the Bible.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's probably real. Abraham's one of my favorite characters as well, because he gets it right, he gets it wrong, and he gets it half right. And he does that all the time, like over and over and over and over and over again. And people are like, I don't understand him, because they're trying to see him as a character in a story that represents something. He's actually a real person.
Right.
And he's all over. And I think that's true probably for Hannah as well.
Yeah. And so many, all of us.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And all of us. I think it leads into the idea of, we have an event coming up. Tammy, I'd love for you to talk about it, if you can, for a second, our 24-hour prayer event. And the theme is everyday revival. Yeah. And so talking about these moments where God is meeting us in the midst of our circumstances, in the midst of every part of our everyday lives, and we're asking Him for revival. But that's coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, I mean, the specifics are it starts at 3 p.m. on Friday, May 1st, and it goes to 3 p.m. on Saturday, May 2nd, and it's here at the Grays Lake campus. What I love about these 24 hours of prayer is you come in, and we're going to have 9 stations, and the stations will have a sign that will have a topic, and it will give you even just a little bit of an introduction to the topic and the significance of the topic, and some scripture to think about, and then some prayer prompts, things you could pray about. And then at each station as well, we have a little journal, so that as you're praying, if God gives you, any, pictures or ideas or just thoughts, or you want to actually even write out your whole prayer, you can record that. And, we read that, we save that, and take that to the Lord. But this is just a way for us as a church to come together in a fun way. I just love the crazy people who sign up for the, 2 a.m. Time slot.
I always want to be that person in every game.
I come about 5. 5 a.m. is my time. I don't know. Have not come earlier than 5.
Yeah.
But, it's just, you move along at your own pace.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to every station. You can, just do one or two, or you can go to each one. You can spend a minute, or you can spend an hour, at each station. We are going to have a little area for kids, and some things that they can engage with as well. So this is a bring your family. So don't worry if it's a little noisy. Prayer doesn't have to be quiet for God to hear you. And sometimes it's easier for us to concentrate when it's quiet. But you know what?
Which is why you come at 3 a.m.
Yeah. But it usually is a quieter space, but it doesn't have to be. And I love, actually, when I see kids, in these spaces that are supposed to be, I don't know, in our mind, these sacred spaces. Yeah. But kids are always kids. Yeah. And that's sacred. Mm-hmm. That's sacred, too. And so, but yeah, I love the topic that we're going to engage in, and just thinking about, revival in our everyday life. Yeah. And so I'm really excited for it.
That's awesome. And I love that you mentioned kids, because this coming week we're going to be talking about Samuel.
Yeah.
Hearing God for the first time
as
a young kid. And so our kids can hear God.
Yes.
Like, they can hear from him. And I think it's an awesome invitation to bring your children and let them hear from the Lord. Like, they can hear from him in their bedroom too, anywhere they are. Yeah. But this invitation to teach them what that looks like and how to talk to God in different
that their
ways.
prayers matter already.
Yeah.
Like, there's no junior Holy Spirit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, I think this week really matters as a parent. Like, I would say this story was always huge for our kids. Mm-hmm. And we used it to teach them that God is talking to you.
Right.
And I think it can be great. So this is going to be
and that
week.
It takes time to recognize his voice.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just such a phenomenal story. I'm so glad it's in Scripture.
Yeah, same. I'm excited for this weekend. So if you are local to us, we invite you to join us at one of our campuses in Illinois or Wisconsin. But if you're not local, you can join us online at chapel.org, or live.chapel.org is our online worship at 9 and 11 a.m. and then across our campuses. And then we'll be here next week. It's been fun.
Thanks.
Yeah.